Welcome back to Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and I am so excited to be back recording podcasts again. I missed you guys so much, and there's so many things that have happened over the past few months that I want to catch you up on before I introduce our guest speaker today. So just to kind of give you guys a lowdown on what's happened since I last recorded a podcast episode in freaking February of this year. So since then, I have gotten a puppy. I've launched the Creative Cash Flow Mastermind, and it's almost completely full. I launched my content program, Content Mastery, and I also took a real vacation. So please all round of applause, be proud of me for that, because I don't know about you, but as an entrepreneur, taking vacation can sometimes be really difficult. But it has been an incredible few months, and I'm so excited to dig back into podcasting with you guys and giving you guys such an amazing day with our guest speaker today. So I'm so excited to have a special guest on our podcast today. Nichole, please say hello and say hi to everyone here.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Aislinn, so much for having me. We just recorded for my podcast, and Aislinn is just a true gem. So it's been so fun, and I'm excited for part 2.
I'm so excited for today. This is going to be amazing. Nichole has such a unique story that she's going to share with you. And I know that you guys are going to get so much out of today's podcast. But before we get into the topic at hand, I just want to tell you a little bit about Nichole so you know exactly who you're listening to. So Nichole Lauren is a photographer. She is an attorney. And she is also a business coach. She loves serving couples in South Carolina and nationwide. She empowers creative entrepreneurs with coaching, integration work, contract templates, and also business resources. And she's also the founder of Legally Creative, the Style Event, and the Self Starter podcast. She is truly a powerhouse. She has done so many incredible things in the short time that I've known her. She's launched multiple different things. So it's been really fun to watch her growth. And I know that today's podcast episode, you guys are going to get so much out of, because we are going to be talking about passive income with a small audience, which I feel like we're kind of parallels here, because you and I both definitely have small audiences, but we definitely both have quite a few revenue streams and definitely have passive streams. So this is going to be such a fun conversation.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I have a story that is very different than most. I am a photographer primarily now, but I quit my full-time attorney job about 2 years ago, but I still practice here in South Carolina. So it's definitely a wild ride, but I would not have it any other way. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic today.
And I'll just say here, I think it's such a unique value proposition. You have such a unique selling point when it comes to who you are. And I think it's really easy for a lot of creatives to kind of just be oh, but I'm just a photographer. And I love that you have really embraced that you have multiple things that you are an expert in. And I think it's so cool that it's just part of your personal brand is all of these different pieces of you.
Thank you so much. That is so kind. Yeah, I think I struggled with it a lot when I was in law school. I felt like there was, and I talk a lot about this on my podcast and on my Instagram, and it's a very big part of who I am now. But when I was going through law school, I always felt like the responsible thing, quote unquote, was to be an attorney. And I love being an attorney. And it was one of my passions and something I was really excited to do and go to law school. And I'm so glad I did. But I remember being kind of met with some confusion and some almost judgment, not in a super negative way, but just what are you doing here? You shoot weddings on the weekends. That does not make sense. That doesn't fit. You're like a square peg in a round hole. That doesn't make sense. And so I feel like I've been met with that a lot. And then once I kind of got to a point where I, in my corporate practice, I realized it can be different. It can be different. I can have my own business. That can be something that makes sense. It doesn't have to be what everyone else thinks it has to be. It can be what I want it to be. And we talked a little bit about that on my podcast about what success means to everyone and how it's different for everyone. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a journey to get here. But if I could say something to your listeners, I would say that your purpose in life is not to make sense to everyone. Your purpose in life is not to, water yourself down so that other people are comfortable. And your purpose in life is not to fit a certain mold or to do a certain thing because that's what everyone says to do. And I feel like we can say that in our minds and be like, yeah, Nichole, I agree with you. But in practice, it's so much harder because it's a subconscious thing. Like we just always, we're looking around, especially in like the industry I'm in wedding photography. It's very visual. We're looking around at other people. We're seeing what they're doing. And it's just human nature to kind of benchmark ourselves with other people. And so if I could say one thing to encourage your audience is that your highest purpose in life is to not make, it's not to make sense to other people. It's to do what you were meant to do in this world. And that can look like so many different things. It can look like being an attorney, being a photographer, being whatever it is, being a mom, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's been a huge journey for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I see this a lot with my own clients, but I also see it in you that you are one of one and you like have really like owned that. And I think a lot of times when people are one of one, they're not trying to fit their molds. They're not trying to be like other people. When they first like start to recognize like, oh, like maybe I do want to embrace my identity as an attorney and I want to embrace my identity as a coach, as well as this other piece of being a photographer. When they start to like recognize that like that actually like sets them apart in a good way, that's I feel like where you start to like really step into like the more like I am who I'm meant to be space. And when you like tell people like, yeah, I'm an attorney and I'm a wedding photographer, the way that you frame it, the way that your body language speaks about it, the way that your inflection speaks about it is different. It shifts. And I think that so many people keep themselves away from that shift because they don't know what it looks like and feels like to be that like very embodied version of yourself. That's like, yeah, I'm a photographer and I also am an attorney and I love all parts of myself.
Yeah, that is so good. That's so good. That's a huge part of how I kind of got to a point where I didn't care as much about making sense is that I started showing up in that way. I started catching myself when I would try to explain myself and saying, actually, I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to say, well, yeah, I'm a photographer, but I'm also an attorney, but I quit my job like 2 years ago. And like, yeah, but I do both now. And it's like, it's weird. You don't have to put qualifiers on yourself and you don't have to explain yourself. And you're absolutely right. When you show up that way and when you present yourself that way, you're teaching others how to view you and how to interact with you. And 100%, when we are insecure or we're feeling, and obviously no judgment, like obviously we all get insecure at sometimes. There's times where we can feel, down or negative and that kind of thing. That I feel like that's totally normal. That's a human thing to experience. But when we approach ourselves with confidence, other people will start to approach us with confidence too. And it's really cool when you do something different because people like that. When you're confident about it, at least people like that. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Like instead of being met with judgment or confusion, when you start to own all the parts of you and you present that to someone really confidently, it gives them space to be like, oh, that's interesting. They can be curious about it. And they can also feel empowered to be totally themselves too, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, I really think that we need more of that in the world, like people who are like showing up as the empowered version of themselves. Because I don't know about you, but like just by being around people, they'll tell me that they're like, oh, well, I saw you do that. So I felt safe enough to go do it for myself. And I'm like, cool, great. That's what we want. We want that kind of energy in the world. So the more that we can show up as the empowered version of ourselves and not hold back and like, like Nichole said, like put qualifiers on ourselves and say like, yeah, but like, I think that really gets to be like an example for how other people can be more empowered versions of themselves. And sometimes it takes you going first and you being that little line leader in your own life in order to like see that shift around you, which I actually think perfectly goes into our topic today, which is passive income for small audience, because that's the thing. The reason why people will watch you and have like you'll have your audience's attention, even if it's a small audience, is because you are showing up as you.
Yeah.
I used to get this all the time as a wedding photographer, and I'm sure you get this as well. People would tell me like you are the same person online as you are in person. Do people say that to you as well?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think that really showcases that like people can feel our energy through like our social media, even if we only have 1,000 people or 500 people following us.
And that's the power of a personal brand. I feel like it's not the right decision for everyone to have a personal brand, but I feel like there's so much power in that people can get to know you as a person and your values and like all the things that make you you. Like I literally posted the cool shoes I bought yesterday and people love that. Like they're like excited for me, like it's like fun. Then they're following along. And I feel like kind of transitioning to this topic we're talking about is we like going back to the whole success is what it is for you and like it's different for everyone is I feel like I bought into the lie, it's really a lie, that I have to have a huge following and I have to have, this many subscribers, this many followers to be able to actually sustain my business and to actually serve people how I want to serve them. And it's just so false. Like being able to serve really well the audience that you have, small or not, like even not even putting those qualifiers on it, but just saying, these are my people. They have found me. I've cultivated a brand that allows them to find me and to really be bought in to what I'm putting out there and to be excited for me and to be almost like friends. I'm not saying that lightly, like it really is. That's how it feels. And that's so much more impactful than trying to chase a number or trying to chase a metric. That's honestly kind of empty in some ways. Now, I'm not saying growing your following is a bad thing. I think that's awesome. And like, would I love to have more followers? Absolutely. But I don't think it's like the end all be all that we always make it out to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think there was this lie going around, I want to say it was in 2020, maybe, that you had to have 10,000 followers in order to be even making sales on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but like when I was still a wedding photographer, but I was like transitioning into a coach, I had my first 10K month as a coach when I had 285 followers on Instagram. And I know you have a similar story with like maybe not the like numbers the being the same, but I know that like you have a fairly small audience and have had, it's growing, but like you're making the numbers that you want to be making as well as serving the people you want to be serving.
Yes, absolutely. So like an example for you. So this is really a small but powerful way that I've seen this show up just recently. So, and this is an example I give sometimes to my audience and my students, but when like about a year ago, I started on YouTube, and you and I have talked about YouTube a little bit, but I love YouTube. It's probably my favorite platform. I feel like it's so easy to show up on YouTube. I feel like it's popularized. I feel like there's a lot of influencers on YouTube, but not a lot of business owners. And so I think there's a huge gap and not too much competition on YouTube, which is amazing. But I got on YouTube like summer of last year and I started consistently producing videos like weekly. And honestly, I had like maybe 200 subscribers at the time. And it was in November and one of my dogs passed away and it was a really hard time. It was really tragic and super traumatizing and just terrible. And I took 2 weeks off of work. I just didn't work for 2 weeks. I was sad. I didn't want to be in the house. I didn't want to be around anybody. Like I wanted to be out and like at coffee shops and stuff. And I really took a huge step back from working. And November, so I'm in South Carolina. So November is like kind of a slower season for weddings. So I wasn't really having any weddings. I was having some income because I do some coaching and consulting on the side, but I wasn't really getting a lot of wedding income. But I had built up my YouTube channel since that summer, and I used a lot of affiliate linking and I used a lot of promotions for my own products that I have in my own shop too. And I think it was over the span of 9 or 10 days from my YouTube channel specifically. I know this is how it happened because I can see all the data coming in. But in those like 9 or 10 days when I was like totally stepped away from my desk, not at home very much, I made over $1,000 in passive income. So I didn't and when I say passive income, I did not put anything out there. I was not posting on YouTube. I was not actively posting on Instagram. So it was like totally a step back. And, you might hear that and you're like, okay, $1,000, it's not that much. But if you think about it, that's a lot for having only 200 subscribers on YouTube and being able to honestly be there for my own emotions and like taking a step back and having the flexibility and still having some sort of income coming in that would have never been able to happen with my attorney job, right? Like I would never be able to take 2 weeks off of work. I mean, yeah, I could probably have PTO of some kind, but it just wouldn't be the same. and I wouldn't be able to make like straight income from literally absolutely honestly no current effort, right? Obviously there was effort before trying to build my following and making YouTube videos before that, but there was no like current real-time effort involved in that. And that just opened my eyes. I just remember thinking after that week how big of a blessing it was, first of all. And then second of all, how it was just amazing that I don't need 10K followers, 100,000 subscribers. I don't need that to be able to make good money passively. Now, is it my like number one strategy in my business? No, I love being a service-based business provider. But it's like something that I love to use to supplement my income. And it's been so freeing, so awesome. So yeah, that's my little story and my little example.
I love that so much. Like I got chills when you said like that you had made that like in 10 days, like while you were completely offline.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I think it's so important as a business owner to recognize what kind of business model you actually have. So
Mm-hmm.
I think as wedding professionals, like we don't think about this. Like we don't think about
Yeah,
like, oh, I have a one-to-one business model.
yeah.
I think a lot of people, like, especially like during like, 2020, like that season of like life and everything, like I feel like a lot of people recognize they're like, oh, hey, I can't always be where I have to physically be in order to make money.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where like the passive income like really started to kind of like pick up speed for a lot of people, like as far as like interest levels. I don't think a lot of people actually like did it.
Mhm.
And I think like now, like I look at my business and I went really from one to one to
Yeah.
a business model that has kind of all of it. Like I have passive income, I have
Mhm.
one to one, I have one to group, I have one to many. And I think that, all of them get to work. You just kind of have to like decide what works for you and like what you want for you. And Nichole,
Yeah.
at this point, I'd say you have the same. Like you have all of the
Mhm.
different types of business models.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I also think like being able to have all the different types frees you up to play in your business, to like have more fun and to just enjoy yourself a little bit more because, and this is something we talked about in my podcast episode, so you'll have to go back and listen to the podcast where I interviewed Aislinn. But when you're just like in that frantic mindset and you're just kind of grasping at every little thing that you can get because you are worried about where your income is coming from, you operate, like you were saying, energetically at a different level. It's just a different type of experience. You're not able to be curious, not able to be playful, you're not able to have fun in your business. And so having all the different types of revenue is so important. And I feel like people do count themselves out when they don't feel like they have whatever it is that the number is that they think they need to be able to make money from passive income. I'm not sure. I feel like it varies. But
Yeah.
10K, 100K, whatever it might be. But I feel like people use that a lot of times as an excuse. Like, oh, well, I don't have 10K followers, so I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to be successful at that. And it's just such a lie. It's such a lie. I just want to like scream from the mountaintops. Like, you can make passive income. Like, you can make all types of income. And it's important to make different types of income because when you are, like you said, when you're trading hours for dollars, you're trading your time for money. That's okay. I'm not saying that's bad. I do that. I think I like being a service-based provider. I like being around my clients. I enjoy that, right? But when that's all you're doing and you're it's just a quick way to burn out, right? Like when you
Yeah.
feel like there's only so much of me, there's only so many hours in a day. It's true. There's only so many hours in a day. You cannot scale your business if it's all relying on your time because it's just never mathematically that's never going to work and you're not going to have a good work-life balance. So it's just I feel like people make excuses. They're like, I would never be able to do passive income. And then they're over here getting really burnt out by doing this, hourly work, not necessarily hourly work, but like trading those hours for dollars.
Yeah. I think the other thing to think about here too is that like a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube or I'm going to start a TikTok or I'm going to start an Instagram, but
Yeah.
they don't actually have a place to funnel people to pay them. So for me,
Mhm.
like when I look at passive income, my first thought is, okay, let's get the offer done first, or at least like get the like
Yeah.
ball rolling with whatever the offer is. And then pick the medium that you want to have
Yeah.
passive income coming through. So that might be blogs, it might be TikTok, it might be Instagram, might be YouTube. I'm sure there's other
Yeah.
ones that I'm missing here. Email could be another one here too. And so when you are thinking about like, okay, like I might want to do passive income in the future, this is something that's interesting to me, recognizing that there is going to be this period where you have to set things up before the passive income is actually like running. Like,
Yeah.
Nichole, I would love to hear from you. When you
Mhm.
like, obviously it was like, you know, the summer through like November, is when that money came in.
Yeah.
Did you already have places to put people? Like, did you already have offers or like low ticket programs or anything that people could buy from you?
Yeah, this is a great question. I feel like I have I don't know what it is, teacher's heart or like coach's heart or therapist's heart. I don't know what it is, but it's like all three of those combined. So I just knew that I wanted to support other creatives, other business owners, and also with like the attorney side of me, I was like, I really want to support people in the legal side because I feel like there's so much of a gap there between creative minds and legal analytical minds. And I feel like I have like both somehow. But I feel like there is such a huge gap there. And when you hire an attorney, they're not always speaking the creative language and vice versa. So, anyways, I knew that with all of that considered, I wanted to be able to teach others. I wanted to be able to give back. And so I had started a small like educational shop. It's still thriving. It's still there. It's nicholeandphotography.com/education if you want to check it out. But it had a few like smaller, like lower ticket offers at the time. And so it was like email templates, a launch plan spreadsheet, presets, things like that. And then I also had a course. I still have the course. It's the wedding walkthrough. And so it's for photographers that are just starting out. It's very beginner and kind of it's walking you through really a full wedding day behind the scenes and kind of being my second shooter. And so I had some of those offers. I had some contract templates as well. But then also something to point out is I had those places that people could come in, but I also had a lot of affiliate revenue, or a lot of, not necessarily a lot of affiliate revenue, but I had a lot of avenues for affiliate revenue to come in. And I feel like that's an underutilized spot as well, where people forget about that, or they don't really think, they think of like the like to know it, like here's my outfit, let me take a picture of my outfit and link it for you. But there's like so much more than that. It's like if you're a business owner, you can recommend the products you're already using in your business, and you can make sometimes 50%. Like my favorite affiliate is it's a 50% cut. Like they give me 50% of every person that signs up. And it's a pretty nice chunk of change, and it's awesome. And it's a service I already use, and I organically talk about it. Like it's actually something I love. So yeah, I had both of those set up. I had an educational shop, and then I also had some affiliate streams coming in too.
I love that so much. And I think that's like kind of the thing that I want my audience to hear is that like, yes, like we want to do passive income, but we want to think about like, what's the offer first? Who are we serving first? And
Yeah.
then think about the different avenues that we want to like get people to buy from. Like, where do we
Mm-hmm.
want them to go? Like you guys will
Yeah.
notice and know that I am on Instagram. That is like primarily where I am selling. I tried
Mm-hmm.
TikTok for a while. I didn't love how much time I was spending on TikTok. So that didn't feel
Yeah.
super aligned. YouTube is on my list. I just, got a puppy and like we moved into a new house and life got crazy. So I didn't focus my attention. But
Yeah.
thinking about like, what's the offer? Who am I serving? Who is this for? What problems am I solving? And
Mm-hmm.
then where do I want to like disseminate this like information essentially?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I would also encourage you guys that are listening, start with something that you feel like you do really well in your business already. That would be super easy for you to put into some type of formula or some type of template that you feel like, obviously, nothing like super. I mean, you never know. There might be someone that wants to learn like the most basic of basic things from you, but I would start with something that you feel like you're doing really well. Like maybe it's your inquiry process. Maybe you have really good inquiry emails. Maybe you can template those out. And I feel like there's got to be something. I feel like everyone has something that they're doing really well that they could teach someone else. And it really is, honestly, Aislinn, I feel like it is a mindset thing to get you there, because it's very much, and maybe you can speak to this point, but it's very much like a self-defeating thing. I remember before I started doing educational like offerings, it was like, oh, who's going to learn from me? I don't have anything to teach. Everyone knows this, that kind of thing. And as I've coached, as I've been helping people in their businesses, I'm really realizing there's so many different people on different like paths and different journeys. And there are so many people that would love to learn from you. Like, and truthfully, so I'm not just saying that. It really is so true. Everyone's on a different journey, and things that kind of become old hat to you after a while are probably brand new to someone else. It could really help them and serve them really well. So maybe starting
I love
there
that.
and figuring out where you feel like you're shining and thriving, and then making it a way that you can give back to someone else.
Yeah, when I think about that for my own business, I think about SAP, which is my signature program, Success Accelerator
Mhm.
program. I think about like, where is like the origin of me making that program? And I think back in 2020, 2021, I was very like much missing connection. I really missed
Mhm.
being in the room with my friends. I had made friends all over the country and I couldn't see them those years. Like there was a lot of just like missing like the human connection. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, no one's going to make this like nobody's going to solve this problem for me. So I'm just going to go solve it. And so I went out and did 77 free coffee dates over that year where I was just inviting people like to Zoom coffee dates. And I was like, hey, like, let's just hang out. And not every single one, but I'd say like a vast majority of those coffee dates, people would say to me, they were like, I just feel like so refreshed after talking to you. And I feel like
Mhm.
I'm going to go raise my prices. I'm going to go network with that person. I'm going to go do all these things. And what I realized from there was I had something unique that they were not getting from other vendors. So I
Yeah.
took that and it became my signature program.
Mm.
So maybe you don't go do free coffee dates for a year. Like, there's not much else to do during that year. But maybe you think about like when you're at networking events and people are like, oh, that's really cool. How do you do that? What
Mhm.
are those things for you? Because
Yeah.
those are likely going to be the things that people will pay for, like once you create whatever this passive income is for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Starting with the questions that you're getting asked all the time. Like, what is everyone wanting to know from you? That's huge. That's a great place to start. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. And I love asking people too. Like, you don't have to wait for them to tell you what you're good at. You can go and ask people. Ask your spouse, ask your best friend, ask a random stranger. Like, I mean, what do you see in me that I do really well? What do you see is a strength of mine?
Let's
And
do this. Hold on. I want to do this right now because I think this would be really fun for
oh,
people to listen to.
okay.
All right. Nichole, one of the things that I think you do really, really well is we talked about personal brand. I think you do
Mhm.
personal brand really well, and you could teach more people about how to do personal brand.
Mhm.
I think you are at a season in your business where you could start to teach people how to do passive income.
I
I
love
think
that.
your entire YouTube channel like could have like
Yeah.
at least one series about how to do passive income as a wedding professional and how to balance like still being a
Ooh.
wedding professional but also creating your first passive income stream.
Ooh. Girl, I'm gonna have to take some notes. I love that. Wait, do I get to go for you now?
If you would like to.
Okay, I want to. Yeah. Okay, something I noticed about you watching your Instagram stories and all the things, but also listening to you talk, and like I've really enjoyed these conversations, the
Me
last
too.
one and then this one. But you are really good at seeing people for who they are and speaking into them what they need to hear. Like, I
Mm.
really see that in you. It sounds like, especially your clients, like they're so lucky to have you. And I see that you honestly, like I see you're full of strategy. You're like, I have the strategy, I know the things, I know how to make you more money. Like, I love that. I almost think even more than that, you're like a lifer for your clients. Like that's what I see is like the mindset, the yeah, the mindset, the growth, the just seeing people for who they are and pointing it out and like really like being very intuitive. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't
That
know if
means a
that
lot to
helps at
me.
all. Yeah. Yeah. Like the
Thank you.
mindset of it all. Yeah.
I think that's a gift that I was given and a gift that I have also cultivated over the years.
Mm-hmm.
It was something I used to do as a wedding professional. Like I would, walk into a wedding day and if it was chaotic, like I would pull my clients aside and I would say, you know what,
Yeah.
like you are so lucky to have each other. Like I love the way you, talk to him, or I love the way that you talk to her, or I love the
Mm-hmm.
way that you and your mom have this really beautiful relationship and the way that you speak to each other is just so kind. And like, I know that I'm someone who's really good with words and that I'm someone who's
Mm-hmm.
really good at speaking life into other
Yeah.
people and life
Yeah.
into business. So I do try to, as much as I can, do that on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis. And the reason why I think that
Yeah.
it's so important to me is that there are so many people who don't have people in their life who do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
think about that. Like, how many people in your life do you have that speak life into you and who
So
speak
true.
like truth over you and who
Mm-hmm.
speak like, like,
So
I see
true.
this in you and I'm proud of you for that being the thing
Mm-hmm.
I see. Like, how many people do you have like that? And
Yeah.
if that's your gift, like, you had better be using it, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And when you receive something like that, like so from your client's perspective, it is like it's very transformational. So yeah, that's an amazing gift. It really when you feel seen, when you're on the receiving end of that, it empowers you to do so much more, which is it's awesome. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
But recognizing that that could be the gift that, like, if you're an audience member
Mhm.
listening to that, that
Yeah.
might be your gift. So, how
Right.
can we use that? And
Yeah.
if you want to capitalize on it, how can we capitalize on it?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. There's so many possibilities. And honestly, like going back to that first part of our conversation when I was telling you that I'm a photographer and attorney and that doesn't make sense and all that. Like even if you're sitting here and you're a wedding pro or you're like in an industry, maybe you're a calligrapher or a florist or whatever it might be, even if that's your industry, like you can add different parts to your business that have nothing to do with that. Like Aislinn was saying, like if your gift is to speak life into other people, like you can add a coaching side to your business. You can add like a, educational side to your business if your gift is teaching. Like it doesn't have to, I don't know. I feel like people always say you got to niche down, you got to like get really narrow. And it's like, I think there's a marketing technique with niching. Yes. Like making sure that you're crystal clear when you're speaking to people, that they're not confused and you're not confusing them with like all these different words and like what you're doing. But when it comes to like what you're offering, your people are going to love you if you're totally yourself. And so, yeah, finding out what it is that your gift is and like adding that into your business, I think is so powerful. And it doesn't have to like
Yeah.
fit in, if that makes sense. It doesn't have to like make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We were kind of talking about this on the podcast episode that I did on your podcast about like
Yeah.
unique value proposition and like unique
Mhm.
selling point, and how
Yeah.
like you have a unique selling point of being an attorney and a photographer.
Mhm.
That is a hugely unique selling point, because what you can essentially do is like the messaging behind that might be, I am going to like bridge the gap between the creative side and
Yeah.
the logistics side, and you're going to feel seen, heard, and supported throughout all of our experience together.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you guys like,
Absolutely.
start to figure out what your gifts are and like how can you turn that into messaging, is like that's where my marketing brain goes.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
but as far
Absolutely.
as like passive income, one
Mhm.
thing I do kind of want to define for our audience is, when you think of passive income, like what does that actually mean to you? Like, because I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of I think passive, like a lot of people think passive means they don't have to do work, and I
Yeah.
just want to like red
Mhm.
flag that right now and say like, nope,
Yeah.
that's not it.
Yeah, I feel like the term scalable income is a lot better. Like, I like to use that term because passive income, yes, I feel like there is to an extent, like, especially with like affiliate revenue, that's a lot more passive than the educational shop that I have. And I don't really do anything besides promote those links that I have for affiliate revenue. But when I think of passive income, it's more about scalable income. So it goes back to that idea of not trading our time for money anymore, but making something that's super valuable and being able to serve a lot of people. So it's one to many model. And so it does require effort. And like you said, it does require a lot of startup and a lot of time on the front end, with the hopes that there's going to be a lot of reward both on the client side and my side. So monetarily, but also a lot of value added to the client on the back end. So it's almost like it's less effort as it goes, as the life of the product lives. But yeah, I think scalable income is probably a better way to phrase it because it really does help you scale. And whenever I was like, but when I first started like thinking about scaling, I didn't even know what scaling meant. I was like, everyone keeps saying scaling. And I'm like, what does this mean? Like I would look it up on Google and like there was no answer. And I was like, what does this mean? But scaling really means just that. It means not trading time for money, being able to grow your business financially, maybe not even just financially, maybe like having a team or growing it bigger, whatever it might be, without putting necessarily a ton more like effort and time into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think a really good example of this is like, if you're a wedding photographer, every single client that you take on is taking up time.
Yeah.
Versus if you are, let's say, a coach or you're adding a coaching branch, when you have a signature program that's a group program, every single client that buys into that group program does not necessarily take up more time because they are learning the same thing from you. It's not a one-to-one space. It's a one to a group of people space. So that's when we're talking about scalable income, we're talking about having different business models and different revenue streams that are one to many or one to group versus just one to one. So a lot of times what I see happen, and this, it drives me crazy. Like I see a lot of wedding professionals who will be like, okay, I'm ready to add on like another revenue stream. They're like, I'm ready to add on a coaching business. And all they want to put out is $150 mentoring sessions that are like one-on-one mentoring sessions. They're just like, if I just sell 30 of these, I'll be great. And I'm like, that's 31-hour calls on your calendar.
Yeah.
You only have so many working hours in a week. Like that isn't scalable.
Yeah.
It could be a cash injection, and that's great, but it's not scalable. Versus if you were to sell 30 spots into your signature group program, that's only maybe one call. That's very different. That's very scalable right there. So I'm sure you've got some things to talk about with this as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like also on that note, I think there's a difference between like, and you said this in our podcast interview, we keep referring back to it, so you're just going to have to listen to it. But there's a difference between, you can grow your income in multiple ways. And there's a difference between raising your experience. So like elevating the experience, raising your prices for what you're currently doing. So that's one avenue of making more money. I don't know. Is that necessarily scaling? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily scaling. It's just making more money. Yeah. So, but that's one way to do it. Like if you feel like you're at a place where either you've increased your education, experience, you feel like, you're feeling burnt out, you're being underpaid, that kind of thing, then you need to raise your prices. You need to be charging more for your time. So then your time is worth more at that point. But yeah, scalable income, it's just a totally different mentality. It's not necessarily that I have to charge a ton, like you said. It's more so my time is valuable, but I also want to be able to serve more people. And so it's putting them into a program, or it's selling templates that they can do DIY things, those types of things. And I feel like a place for you to kind of assess if you're at a good spot to add in this type of income. Well, first of all, I think anyone could add in this type of income to a certain extent, but a good place to kind of know, like, okay, it's well overdue. You need to put this into action. You need to have passive income, is when you're in really high demand for what you're doing. You're doing something really well and you've nailed it. You feel like you're in a good spot. You're very consistent with what you do. You serve clients really well. You have really good processes, like Aislinn likes to talk about. You have a solid business. So I would not say passive income is the answer to a struggling business.
Yes.
I would say passive income is the answer to a thriving business, I guess, is what I would say. Which kind of sounds weird, but it is. It's so true, because when you are finding that you cannot be in multiple places at once and you're having so much demand, that's one indication that you need to scale, and you need to make it so that people can access you without having to necessarily put more hours in. And when you're at that place where you've gotten all these processes down and you know what you're doing, you have a lot to teach other people. So it's time that you do that. So yeah, that's a little kind of like litmus test to see, okay, yeah, I'm well overdue. It's time for a passive income or an additional revenue stream.
I love that. We recently launched my mastermind, Creative Cash Flow Mastermind, because I was noticing people inside of SAP were kind of like getting to a point where their business was working so well that they were like needing to add on a passive income stream in order to like raise their prices, in order to like have more of their time back. And I was like, this is not what we're doing in this program. So we need to make a new program essentially for the people who are like at the point where like everything is running perfectly on their wedding business. It's time. It is well past time to like start like adding on additional revenue streams. And I actually have clients who are like, hey, can I upgrade to the mastermind? And I say, no, it is not the space for you yet because of this, this, and this. I want to make sure these things are solid before we get to that point. And I have a lot of clients who are like, oh, thanks for like, making sure I'm in the right spot. And I think it's so important to like recognize that like, if you are in a place right now where like inquiries are not coming in, or like you feel like not solid in lead gen, or you don't feel solid in your marketing, that is not the time to be like, oh, well, maybe if I just like make an educational branch. That is not the right solution. And I think for myself, for my own business, like I did not add the educational branch until I was charging well over 10K at that point, and I was in demand. That's when I decided, I was like, you know what, maybe we're going to go down a different route here. I wasn't trying to save a sinking ship.
Yes. Because if you do that, if you go from a place of not doing well and then you go to passive income, it's not going to be good, because you're going to feel that frantic mindset kick in even more. And even though we're talking about like, we have small audiences and we have passive income, it's so easy. It's kind of like the point of this episode. But it really is hard. It's a different ball game. It's like a different type of selling. It's a different type of mindset. It's a different type of system. You have to have different systems in place for this. So it's difficult in the sense of it's a new way. If you've never done passive income, it's a new way of thinking. So if you go into that from a place of lack and a place of frantic mindset, you're going to be even more discouraged if you're going into a passive revenue stream with that, because you're going to be even more burnt out, because it's not going to be necessarily that instant gratification. Like Aislinn was saying at the beginning, it's going to take some startup. It's going to take some time before you see the returns. And if you're not seeing the instant gratification that you think it will be, that everyone else preaches about, that they're like, I just made 10K overnight. And it's like, no, there was a whole story behind that. You're going to be really disappointed. So it's important to do it after you have a thriving business, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually had some of my past clients who have been looking at my current business and they're like, how are you making this much money? Like, I don't understand. I want to be doing that. And I'm like, well, you didn't see the failed launches. You didn't see the months of selling stuff. You didn't see all of the back end like restructuring. So like recognizing that when someone is selling you passive income as the solution to a failing business, they don't have your best interest in mind, in my opinion. They are trying to sell you something that is not going to solve the actual problems that you're currently experiencing.
Yes.
So I don't want you guys to feel discouraged about passive income. I want you to feel like it is something that is available to you, because it absolutely is. When you get to a point where you feel like your business is optimized, like your wedding business, you feel like it's optimized, you are charging just about what you want to charge. Maybe you could charge a little bit more, but you feel pretty solid in what you're doing. You have referrals, you have your network, you have a great client experience. Everything is going good there. You just want a little bit more of your time back. That is a great place to be to add in passive income. So Nichole, if someone was listening and they really wanted to add on passive income, what would you tell them might be a good starting point for them?
Okay. Affiliate revenue is I would say the easiest, the lowest threshold, just like the quickest probably way for you to get into this and kind of dip your toes in. And I would say what we were saying about passive income with like starting another revenue stream, like an educational shop or something like that. I would say even if your business is not thriving, you could still apply for affiliate revenue. I think this is the exception. I think affiliate revenue is like anyone in their business needs to be applying for this, because you likely, no matter what stage of business you're in, whether you're just starting or you're seasoned pro, you have some type of software that you're using. If you're a photographer like me, you're using Lightroom, you're using PicTime, you're using, if you sell online products, you're using Thrivecart, like all these things. And so it's really a natural progression to just apply for the affiliate programs. And this is one thing that people think is so out of reach. And I want to just like scream it again from the rooftops. Like, it is not out of reach. It's really easy to apply for stuff like this. Like, it's not like an influencer posting outfits. It's really, really easy. Like Thrivecart has an amazing affiliate program. Flowdesk has a really good affiliate program. Showit has a really good affiliate program. And they're very easy to apply for. If you're already using their software, it's just like literally one click and you can start making money. So yeah, I would say you needed to do that yesterday if you haven't done that already. Like, that's the best, like lowest threshold, easiest place to get started, I would say.
Yeah, let's give you guys an action step here. I want you guys to pull up a Google Doc or a pen and paper, and I want you to write down all of the different softwares, all of the different things that people ask you, oh, where did you get that from? Or, oh, like what image, like what system are you using for this, this, and this? Or like, oh, I really like your desk setup. Where did you get all of the things on your desk? I want you to write all of that stuff down in a Google Doc, and then I want you to go look up, like spend 15 minutes today going and looking up the affiliate program for each of those. And then I want you to put your affiliate link into one document so it is easy to find. So that's your action step for today right now.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, listen to her. Don't skip that part.
So a lot of people in the wedding industry who want passive income, they don't know how to market or sell their passive offers. So do you have any advice there?
Oh yeah, so many things. So something that I feel like this is said a lot. I feel like, so you've probably heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. People think that everything they put out, their audience sees. People think like, I'm going to bore my people to tears. I'm going to annoy them. I'm going to, whatever it might be, right? Like Aislinn, like you do a really good job of this actually. I know what your programs are. I know when they're open. I know what the pricing is. Like you will put a lot of like repetitive stories, not repetitive in the sense that they're the same stories, but like literally your stories are very informative and it's not annoying to me whatsoever. I enjoy looking at stuff. I like it. Like it's really good. So like honestly, go look at Aislinn's. It's like a case study. Look at her stories for inspiration. But this is a perfect example of we can get insecure and in our heads about, okay, maybe you have created something and you have an educational shop or you have some affiliate revenue and you share about it one time. That's not going to cut it. Like, it's just not going to work. It's very different, like we said, from service-based services. The services that you offer is just very different, right? That's a time, like, for instance, wedding photography for me. People usually come to me. They find me through SEO. They find me through Google search. They find me on Instagram. They come to me. They fill out the contact form, and then I reach out to them. It is very different when it comes to products, okay? I would say very few people are actually finding me on search to buy my products or shop my affiliate links. It's usually most often because of something that I am putting out into the world, inviting people to take that action with me. And if I shut up about it after just sharing about it once a year, I wouldn't have those sales. I wouldn't have that affiliate revenue. Like some of what I was talking about earlier back in November when I had that string of 10 days and I made over $1,000, a lot of that, some of that was affiliate revenue. And it was because I was strategically putting inside of YouTube videos call to actions and saying, hey, if you want to try this service out, there's a link in the description. So you have to ask people. You have to get comfortable with asking people, being okay with them telling you no. And you also have to get over, like, honestly, you have to get over yourself and just think like, it's not that deep. You're not going to annoy people. They're probably not seeing everything you put out anyways. And if they are, then they absolutely love you. So like, it's a good thing. So yeah, talk about it as much as possible. Share about it more times than you think you need to. And the last part of the puzzle piece, which I kind of just touched on, is you go find these people. Don't wait for them to come to you. Don't wait for them to decide they want to work with you. You show up in their space, you DM them, you talk on your stories as if you're talking to them. And when you show up that way, like we talk about a lot about energetics in this episode, but it really is true. Like when I was marketing my mastermind coaching program for photographers, I was showing up in people's DMs. I was saying like, hey, genuinely, very genuinely, not like scammy, but very genuinely saying, hey, I actually really think this would be a good program for you. I would love to like talk more about it. And people will say no. And honestly, once you get over it's almost like a little hump you kind of have to get over at the beginning. You're going to get some rejection, but as long as you stay curious, and even when people reject you, using that as almost like market research and saying, okay, you said no, but could we still hop on a call? Because I really think you're my ideal client, and I would just love to hear feedback from you as to what, if you were to ever join a program like this in the future, what would you like to see as part of it? And it's so helpful for me. It's like, oh, I would love to know that. And it's no pressure for them because they don't have to buy, but it's really helping you in terms of research. And I actually had, so this is funny, this exact method, I actually had someone end up purchasing after I did that, even though that wasn't my goal for the call, right? It was like,
I
I'm
love
just
it.
here. I want to hear what your pain points are, what your concerns are. This is really helping me. You're really helping me out. And it ended up, she was like, you know what? Actually, I do want to join. So it really, when you get comfortable with the no's and the rejection and you use it as fueling your fire and getting curious and treating it like almost like an adventure, kind of without sounding too cheesy, almost like an adventure, an exciting journey, then yeah, you can show up in those really tangible ways and show up over and over again so that people can actually hear what you have to say.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot in the coaching industry. You will see a lot of people talking about like attraction marketing, where it's like kind of like, oh, you just show up and people will come. The reason that those people can say that is because they have done the work that Nichole was just talking about. They have done the DMing people. They've done the market research calls. They've done the like calls to action. They've done like being in other people's spaces, doing podcast interviews, doing guest speaking, like doing all these things. That is the basic, very, very beginner work that you're going to have to do. And it is going to challenge your ego in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it is the work that you have to do to get to the point where people are just messaging you and being like, hey, I want to be in your program, or I want to buy your thing, or whatever it is. You will get to that point after you go through the other parts of it. It's not like you could just be like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube today and I'll make $1,000. You might. You might. If you already have a personal brand, you might. Like if I started a YouTube today, there's a possibility I could make $1,000 in a month. Maybe. I don't know. Like I could maybe make more if I wanted to. But like also I've had years of building a personal brand, and Nichole's the same way. She has had multiple years of building out the personal brand side of things. So when you're thinking about starting to add in passive revenue, I want you guys to think about like, just because you are seeing people talk about attraction marketing, or they're talking about like, oh, just show up and the sales will come. That is not where you are. And recognizing that there is nothing wrong with where you are having to kind of do some more of that like boots on the ground kind of work that we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
This conversation has just been like so incredibly like fulfilling, and like it's been so cool to hear like all the different like ways that you're doing like your passive income. I would love for you to just kind of like, let's put a bow on this. Is there anything else you want the audience to hear? And then I would love for you to just let people know how they can find you, how they can work with you, what you have coming up that might be really fun and juicy for our audience to join.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I would just encourage you, challenge what you think normal is. Challenge that, and just remember that you don't have to make sense to everyone, and find what it is that is successful to you, whether Aislinn's coaching you through that or you're figuring that on your own. Find out what success is to you, and don't let, put those blinders on, like Aislinn was saying. Make sure that you're not, letting those outside influences water you down and make you fit into some sort of box. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. You can find me on Instagram. It's _ Nichole Lauren. I spell my name with an H, so it's NicholeLauren. I'll give Aislinn the link though, so you can just click it. And then I have a lot of really cool educational items, templates, a course for wedding photographers specifically. You can find that at NicholeLaurenPhotography.com/education. I also run a photography business specific mastermind for female entrepreneurs that are photographers specifically. And we might run another round of that program in the fall. So yeah, love to have you in that. And then I also have a contract template shop. So they're all attorney drafted contracts, and you can find those at legallycreative.com. And you can also find me on YouTube. My podcast is the Self Starter Podcast. But yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me, Aislinn.
Thank you for joining me on my podcast. Thank you for having me on yours. Like both conversations were so fruitful. So if you guys are listening to this, I'm also going to link that podcast episode so that you guys can find it. But thank you so much for this. It was such a beautiful conversation. And I hope that whoever is listening really found this empowering, that your next step might be passive income. And this could be like the catapult for that.